Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to day 14 of the Ramadan Dua Accelerator. Today's dua is actually not from the Quran. And I know you're like, wait a minute, Hannah, didn't you say you were going to teach us du'as from the Quran? Well, sometimes I feel like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts certain things on my heart to share with you guys. And today I felt like this dua was one that was really important to share with you guys, as many of you guys might not be familiar with it, but its impact is profound. So I'm going to close the Mus'haf for today and just share this kind of off the top of my head. The dua that I am going to be sharing is a dua from our beloved Prophet ﷺ, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this was a dua that he regularly repeated and he often recited. And in fact, some say that it is the most often dua that he recited. Now, I would hope that because it is one that the Prophet ﷺ recited so often, that you guys would excuse me from veering off a little bit from what I typically do in this series, and I hope that inshallah it will benefit you the same. The dua is as follows. Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinak. The translation is, Ya muqallib al-qulub, O turner of the heart, thabbit qalbi ala dinak. Make my heart firm upon your deen, upon your religion or your way of life. The Prophet ﷺ is the one making this dua. And by virtue of that, knowing that the Prophet ﷺ had the purest heart, if you guys know the story of the quite literal purification of the Prophet's heart when he was a child, by Jibreel at the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, despite the purity of his heart and despite the fact that we know the Prophet ﷺ had nothing but enduring and unwavering faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his deen, the Prophet's making this dua. So as an extension, we should be taking the lesson that we make this dua as well. The dua is said because the Prophet ﷺ says that the heart of a person, the heart of a human being, turns between the fingers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The understanding of what fingers is to us this way, we're not likening our fingers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's fingers. So fingers in a way that is befitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's majesty, not a physical finger, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists outside of time and space, and we understand physical attributes to be in time and in space. In space in that literally you can see my fingers moving, and time in that my fingers were just here and now they're here, right? So I know that when their body parts are being mentioned, it usually has more of a metaphorical meaning. And the point still stands, though, that the reality of the heart, the spiritual heart of a human being, is that there's not always consistency with it. And there's even a verse in Surah Al-Hujurat, I believe, where the people who had recently converted to Islam began to say that they are from the mu'mineen, they are from the believers. And the Prophet ﷺ said, don't call yourselves believers yet, but say that you submitted to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, call yourselves Muslims. And part of the reason for that is because Iman is a matter of the heart, where submission is a matter of the body. In an essence, right? You don't have to be so thoroughly convinced to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's command. I can get up and pray even if my heart's not in it, because at the end of the day, I understand this is a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Iman behind my submission would mean that I'm excited to go pray. I yearn for that prayer. When the Prophet ﷺ used to say, Arihna biha ya Bilal, O Bilal, give us rest with the prayer, with the call to the prayer through the adhan, right? So that's a reflection of Iman. But Iman comes with time, and it's a matter of the heart, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also grants Iman. So we should focus on what precedes Iman, which is our submission, and hope to attain that Iman through that submission, through the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. With that being said, this is a dua that is so important, because when the heart kind of sways, and you can see how often do you find yourself emotionally attached to something that you know Islamically is not good for you. You know it's not going to serve your akhirah. You know it's not going to serve your dunya. You know it's merely a fleeting thought of your desires. Maybe it's a person, maybe it's fame, maybe it's attention, maybe it's money. But the point is, those things can easily take us, and if you allow them to hold space in your heart for long enough, they will begin to consume you, and that's all that you think about. And sometimes I find myself thinking about things of similar nature, where things that, something might have started off as a really good intention. Honestly, YouTube is a very good example of this, but I have to constantly remind myself, well, this is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And, there might be other metrics that you feel like chasing, and it's okay to have those as secondary intentions or secondary goals. But at the end of the day, you always want your prime heart's desire to be the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and doing things for his sake. So memorize this dua if you haven't already, and continue to say it so that you understand that you can feel confident that there's not a point in your life where you haven't turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and asked him to take over the matters of the heart. The matters of the heart are actually technically part of the unseen. And so we have some control over it, but not completely. And again, because we are just human beings, we have to make sure we root ourselves in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and ask him to keep us on the rightly guided path through it. If our Prophet ﷺ never left this dua, then neither should we. And I hope that it is easy for you guys to memorize. I'll try to remember to put a link to it in the description below. If you liked this series and like this episode in particular, please like the video, thumbs up the video, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you guys in the next one. Assalamu alaikum.